right, Dolphins. Hey, y'all, you got one. You got one. It's not enough for me to put on the hat. It's not enough to put on the jersey or the shirt, whatever. Not enough for me to put on some Dolphin merch. But you got one, and that's all we can ask for. But let's not act like that could have turned real nasty. Now, I'm gonna give proper props is due. I was like, they came out and during the whole game, they transformed into what we sort of thought they would be since the beginning of the season. They've been dumpster fire doo-doo water for nearly 3 weeks, but for one night. And to be honest, I was like, they almost stayed with the doo-doo water. They almost did, but I was like, we got through. Now I'll say that first drive where the Jets were just, I was like, the Dolphins ain't really do anything. They got a field goal, but when the Jets were just drilling through them, I was like driving down the whole listen, and it was just nothing where like they wasn't even really passing. They were just running through. No matter it was Fields, no matter it was all three of their backs, they got lucky on that punch out. And there's no telling if that would have been how the Jets would have basically been able to go. There's no telling if the Dolphins wouldn't have turned it on after that. But I think that saved the game for the Dolphins. That whole punch out, and then after that, they decided to take it to the Jets. And I feel like them getting just constantly ran through. Like they were getting ran through more than a brothel at that point. They came out with a whole different mindset. Even the way they offense changed, they defense changed after that. And it's crazy to me that the way both of them they play more loose. It's like they play more fast. It's like they play with the abandonment that you would think that they should play with when you 0-3. If you've been sorry the last couple weeks. The offense sort of got it going a little bit against the Patriots, but their defense was still there. They was starting to get a little something, but not really anything. It's like they had two over here look like he was playing basketball. He was doing pitches behind the back over here stuff. I thought that dude was CP3 for a minute. The way he was over here I was dribbling handoff and all this other stuff. I was like, he was giving and going. I was like, he was doing so much. I was like, where's this Tua been at? I was like, this is the Tua I expected once he got the arm sleeve and he got his head twisted up. I was like, that's the Tua I was expecting. And we got him. We got him after they was over here getting punked at the very first drive of the game. I was like, the defense changed as well because the defense decided to actually just be like, you know what, we just gonna come after Justin Fields. And the thing is, I was like, if let's also be honest, if the Jets probably don't have all those penalties, with some of them I don't think too much. Was too crazy. Like I was like the one with the offensive lineman Simpson, I think, or whatever. To me, I was like they got tripped over a guy. I was like the one where everybody got scared as hell because the dude he was gonna take Tua's head off. And the thing is, it's like he sort of brushed him a little with the forearm in the head. And while that sometimes does get a flag, sometimes it really doesn't because it kind of just looks like a marginal contact because it really wasn't enough. You get what I'm saying? Like if that to me, that had been like Trevor Lawrence or something like that, I don't know that would have been called. Maybe also because he's a bigger guy and stuff. But I do think that it being on Tua and it was really fast. It was really fast that it looked way worse when you seen it in real speed. But then when they slowed it down, which I was like, yes, the ref's not going to really be able to see that really at that time. But he didn't really get to it. It was like a little gray. Like it was barely enough that his helmet. I was like, he really just kind of missed him. But it's really just a threat with Tua. But anyway, the fumbles really sort of messed up the Jets in a way where it's like the game was closer than the score and also far away at the same time. I know it's really hard to think of that like that, but when you watch the game, it was really close. Then I was like the Dolphins was able to get up about like 2 scores, and then the Jets pretty much got it really like right back, to be honest, to where it's like they was in the game a lot more than they actually really seen. But I was gonna say, but we're not. I was like, we still. I gotta get the Dolphins brought because I felt like, especially when I'm like, let's be honest, I was like, Mika Fitzpatrick really the only DB they got. I was like, you got Chubb and you got Seigler. I was like, I always mess up his name. And Jalen Phillips. So you got a good front. You got a good front up there. And they actually were just getting after the quarterback after a while. They would blitz on stuff too, and I was like, cool, because I was like, the receivers for the Jets aren't there in a way that you gotta keep everybody home or something like that. So I'm like, so you should really be honest. They should have had more people in the box because I was like, you got Fields and they had like 3 running backs. I was like, the old boy name is Allen. I was like, got hurt, but I was like, nah. I was like, basically just cover everybody because there's nobody really worth a damn. I was like, Allen Lazard like the 3rd receiver there. Cause I'm like, hell, even I was like, the only mistake to me they really had was when I was like, and it's somewhere on the Jets because I was like, I don't think Justin Fields. I was like, I think that he is so concerned with like distributing the ball, showing that he can pass and do this whole thing that that's what played in our benefit because what we seen on that touchdown pass where he just threw it to Garrett Wilson, that I'm like, he had a lot more chances to do that in the game. And I do also think that if I was like, as much as the Dolphins did also have a couple like one-on-one chances, you throw that up, get that shit to Garrett Wilson. I'm pretty sure he gonna come down with a lot more like how we seen how he did with the last touchdown. I was like, so that to me, I was like, that type of stuff sort of played in our favor. But hell, I was like, Justin Fields was able to get us out with a luck play of going basically a dead play, and he was able to flip that up to about like a 40-yard touchdown or whatever like that. And to be honest, there was a couple of them where on like the zone reads, he should have had us as well too. But I was like, props given to to also Tua and also Darren Waller coming back. Now, I didn't know how much his impact was going to really be here. I was like, this is the first game back, but at the same time, and this is where I thought that Westbrook Akine would come in handy. But I was like, now him and Waller are going to be needed more now that Tyreek Hill, who I think is done or whatever. Which I was like, I'll go back to my point on Waller, but it was crazy to me that they showed Tyreek Hill's injury. First of all, they showed it, and nobody. The players sort of knew very quickly, but the commentator didn't say nothing at all. And I'm like, you don't see his leg a 90-degree angle right now. Like that thing. I thought I was like the way his leg broke. I thought he was doing a dance move. That's how crazy that was. Then they showed the replay, which is crazy to me that they showing these replays. But I was like, one of the replays, like I was like screaming. But I was like, you could see the bump. I was like, yo, that's crazy. Just because I was like, most of the time, like they do show the injury. They show like, oh, where the injury might have happened, or like, ooh, that just looks rough. This one was it. But anyway, so they're gonna need more Akine, I think, involved. But where I thought that he would have an impact is him being 6'2" versus our other wide receivers who are basically underneath 5'10". And I think that's where Waller actually came in. I was like, now his second touchdown was pretty much, regular touchdown, nothing too special. But the one he first caught where Tua just threw it up and was able to get both feet down. I was like, that's where you need big receivers. And I think that's where a lot of our troubles come in. And I was like, him being 6'6", and also he can run, but he being 6'6", really helped that. And that's where I was like, I'm glad we got Akine during the offseason, because I was like, he's a big dude or whatever. And he was Tennessee's really number one receiver, if you really want to think about it, last couple of years or whatever. I was like, I know they got Ridley, but you get what I'm saying. And they didn't keep him. But I was like, but I thought that were going to come in handy. Because, we got, because I was like, everybody else we got is short with, Washington and stuff like that. Also, it's also crazy to me, too, that they gave up on Gesicki, about 2-3 years ago. And I felt like they've been trying to replace him ever since, to be honest, because it's like, while McDaniels don't really use the tight ends, one, I was like, the tight ends have came in handy. Like, you've seen, like, tonight, they had, like, Waller, they had Hill in, like, they had a lot of their tight ends or whatever. And I was like, our offensive line is always shaky, so why when you have more tight ends? I was like running the ball. I was like other outlets, bigger targets. I don't ever understand why, but I felt like what you had with Waller, you had in Gesicki, who would have basically been just a cheap, younger option or whatever. Because I was like, you ain't really asking too many of. I was like, at that time, you wasn't really asking your tight ends to block. Johnny Smith, you was asking him really just to get screens and stuff like that. He was a good, like, balanced guy to me that we traded. But I was like, Waller coming in, I think, could change the dynamic of the offense, because not only big receiver, I was like, he's fast. I was like, he gives Tua an actual outlet as well. That I think that when we did have Tyreek Hill and we had Jalen Waller, you've seen how all that opened up for everybody. Everybody got to eat. Tyreek Hill was a lot more open. Waddle got more open. I was like, you had another threat than just those two and like some trick plays. So I think like that, when it was working, it all opened up or whatever. And of course you got Achane, that's always there. And I was like, that dude. But I was like, I also think that I think came into factor too is Gordon, who I was like, I kind of also was calling for this in the offseason. They drafted him of like a big back. I was like wanting like a Tyler Algier from like Atlanta. So like I was like they need a big back to go. Like Mostert wasn't a big back in that type of way. He's like, yeah, he's bigger than Achane. I was like, he is a big guy, but he's not a big back. So I was like, and I think that's where like you've seen like I was like Gordon came in, gave him some good runs as well too. I was like, you could see he helps out the line because he's able to just go through as well. Because I was like Achane's cool, and I was like, I like Achane because he could hit the home run, and as we seen on the run to the touch, I was like for his touchdown, how effortlessly it was where nobody could touch him or whatever. But I was like, to me, I was like, the Dolphins, who have a mediocre line, I was like, Tua, who's not a scrambler or nothing like that, small receivers, I was like, and always it's like, we're not tough. I was like, you added things of like a big receiver and a power back that can at least mitigate some of these things. So I was like, I think they came in a real big play here, and I was like, in this game. Especially considering like the line was also, like I said, it was already a little bit shaky or whatever. I also think too that look, I was like, we didn't get it against the Patriots, which I think should have been, but the Jets is also not a bad follow up either of like a win. I was like playing against a team that you just like, yo, we need to win this. Cause I'll be honest, I was like, I know it's gonna be weird to say because they're in your division, but I like Aaron Glenn. I like Justin Fields. So I was like, there's a couple of people I like on the Jets. So I was like, I'm not saying I root for the Jets. I was just like, I want them to do well while we beat them. You get what I'm saying? And this wasn't that game for that. But at the same time, I was like, I'll take it. I was like, and then next week y'all can do whatever y'all want to and get back on track. But for this week, I was like, the Dolphins straight. Now, did that mean that because I was like, now that Tyreek Hill is gone, I will say, I was like, man, maybe I'll do another video. I'll talk about what the Dolphins going to look like for the rest of the season. Because I was like, I do think this is what they needed. I do think they got a little bit of their mojo back. I do think that I was like, this. I feel like is where I was like, they took some stuff out the bag. They took some tricks out the way. I'm just like, cool, feel yourself a little bit, Jesus Christ, or whatever. Being on tight, everybody on hot seat, everybody being like, McDaniels ain't gonna make it to Thanksgiving. I was like, a two gonna be the quarterback next year. It's like at least we can simmer that down a little bit. There ain't no boil, you don't see no bubbles. I was like, it's just warm water right now. You can't make tea just yet. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, now the Hill thing. I was like, they're gonna have to adjust. I was like, I think what's going to hurt. I was like, the weird part is, I think that obviously if we would have keep losing, he would probably be on the trade block anyway. But I was like, I don't think it's going to devastate them in that way. I think it actually might open some things up, is what I'll say. I was like, obviously, like I said, I think it's bad where I was like, I don't think he come back this year or whatever, but we'll see how obviously all that goes. I was like, and I think that also depends on where the Dolphins end up at the end of the year. So to be honest, I was like, I think his season's over, because I was like, I don't know anymore that we're gonna really do. But at least in the division, be second division. I was like, get to the playoffs, be difficult, but I think there's a chance. Anyway, I guess a little bit of like, I'll say some stuff about the Jets is that I think the Jets have like hurt themselves. I was like, I think everybody should stay patient. Because to me, I was like, if you trust what Aaron Glenn's doing and coming from the Lions, this is kind of like the trash season the Lions had in their first year before they really started kicking it in gear. I was like, they got to still replenish the roster. I think Justin Fields is fine. I was like, he ain't really got any weapons, so he got to do everything himself, or whatever. I do think that it's weird that the Jets, I think in all of their games, I think their first drive had the mindset of what they were going to do, to where like this luck is going to be a game, and then they ruin themselves to where they really mess up their mindset. I feel like the rest of the game after that. So I was like, that's a little bit I'll say with the Jets, at least right here, because I just really wanted to do more of the Dolphins stuff. But yeah, have more Dolphin talks. Tyreek Hill, get more judgment of that, how I feel like that's going to go, like I said, with the season. But at least get to breathe a little bit. Anyway, see you for next time. We out.